Hello world, it's Leigh Kelson from BeachCity coming to you live from the magnificent Langham Hotel in Melbourne, and I found this guy walking around the pool area. Guy Kawasaki, how are you?
Doing? Good morning. Good morning.
So Guy, I just said to you off camera, we want to start with the really important stuff, and that's surfing.
Yeah. You know, I've tried to surf 3 times in the last week. I'm 0 for 3.
Right.
Once it was just too rough for everybody to go. The second time I went to Byron Bay, it was nothing. Third time I went to Manly and it was nothing. So I'm 0 for 3. I'm going to go home so I can go surfing.
Man, you have to go to Queensland, right? That's where you're going to find some waves.
No, but I was in Queensland. I was at Kira and
Right.
Was it Tugan or Tuggan?
Yeah,
Tuggan, something,
Tugan.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah. You got nothing?
Nothing.
You got nothing, okay. And so tell me, I know you surf a lot at home. You live in Hawaii, which is a pretty cool place to live.
Well, actually, I live in California.
Oh,
I was
okay.
born and raised in Hawaii. Though.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So you're in California now?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
And, you know, obviously you're an author and you've had an amazing career, and I don't think you need much introduction from the Australian market, and you're an evangelist for Canva, but I think you mentioned in one of the interviews I saw that one of the most important things...
Helicopters.
Yeah, that's helicopter. Is being a father.
Maybe he's going to slap a tariff on Vegemite or something.
I think you said that the most important thing that you're doing now is being a father.
Yes. I have 4 children. 2 are out of the house already, but 2 are still in the house. So I have a finite number of days with them. So that's what I'm doing, yeah.
And you go out and you surf with the kids?
All 4 kids surf,
Right.
yes. There are 5 people, there's 6 people in my family, 5 of us surf. I am not the worst. I'm not the best either, but I'm not the worst.
So tell us, what brings you to Australia?
I've come to Australia for 2 reasons. One, I'm in Melbourne for the Startup Grind Conference, and that happens tomorrow. And I'm also Chief Evangelist of a company called Canva, based in Sydney, out of Surrey Hills. And so we also had a quarterly employee meeting. So I killed 2 birds with 1 stone.
Right. And so Canva is, let's talk about Canva. It's a fantastic Australian success story.
Oh, yeah.
So tell us, what does Canva do?
So Canva is an online graphics design service. It enables you to create beautiful graphics in under 5 minutes, under 2 minutes really. Yeah. And we have created the templates for all the standard sizes, formats, social media platforms, posters, business cards, flyers, you name it, all done in advance. You use our pictures or your own pictures and boom, you're done. Think of it as Photoshop for the rest of us, basically. So it's fast, free, and easy.
It is definitely easy. I've used it for banners, for YouTube pages, and it's just absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And so evangelism, right? I think you've sort of coined that term, evangelism.
It was Jesus before me, but yeah, okay. Secular evangelism, maybe, yeah.
So, I mean, what is evangelism? I always think of, you know, the evangelic Christians and the preachers, right?
Yeah, which in America anyway has a whole different meaning.
Yeah.
Since 2016, shall I say.
Right.
So evangelism comes from Greek words bringing the good news. So what an evangelist does is bring the good news of a product or service. So I evangelized Macintosh. I brought the good news of Macintosh that would make people more creative and productive. And now I'm evangelizing Canva, which has democratized design, enabling really anybody to make great designs. So what an evangelist does is bring the good news. Macintosh, right. Canva.
Yeah. So you touched on Macintosh. You know, back in the early 80s, you know, the proliferation of the PC must have been tough trying to get that product out into the market at that time.
It was tough in an engineering sense to just finish the thing because it was so different from everything else. It was also tough to get companies to finish their software because it was different from everything else. So it was a big task to write software for Macintosh. But that's what I had. That was my job, to convince people to write Mac software.
Right, and obviously you got people to write software.
Took a while, but yeah, I did. Yeah.
But I heard you say an interesting thing about the fact that you'd sort of defined what Macintosh was, but then it became desktop publishing because that's what the customers were doing with it.
You know, we thought Macintosh was a spreadsheet database and word processing machine. Come to find out, it became a desktop publishing graphics machine. But there's a lesson there that, you know, you take your best shot at positioning and branding, and then ultimately the market determines what it is. Right. So, you know, that was a great time in my life. It was working with just the best and the brightest people, and we all. That's funny.
We've got a waterfall started on us.
Yeah. I wonder if it's going to keep going.
Probably.
I wonder what triggered it.
I have no idea.
Are we going to move, or are we going to?
I think we should be okay. We've got a good reporter mic here.
All right. So anyway, this is the best and the brightest people, and you know, it was an honor and privilege to work with them, and we really were just totally motivated, totally psyched up by Steve Jobs. It was a remarkable time, and he was the greatest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he's an amazing person. So what was it like working with Steve Jobs?
Scary, because you know, he had very high standards, and he did not care about your feelings, and he basically humiliated you all the time if you were a bozo. So, you know, I think a very good analogy would be that as you look back in your life, and it may take 20 years, you look back and you think, so who are the people who really added value? And they will be the coaches and the teachers who were the hardest, not the easiest. And that's also true of bosses. So, you know, when you're in school, you may think, oh, I'll find the easy teacher, easy grader, doesn't care about absenteeism, etc., etc. When you look back, it's the tough teachers that really taught you something, and Steve Jobs was a tough teacher.
So Steve Jobs is renowned for having the reality distortion field. Is that a real thing?
It's a very real thing. Millions of people have succumbed to it. Yes, yes. He was unique, and unique, literally unique. And lots of people claim they're, you know, visionaries and all that. I think there've only been a handful of visionaries in American business. So, Walt Disney was one. Steve, Elon Musk. You know, it's a handful of people. Yeah. It's not every joker with, you know, $1 million in seed capital who's starting a way to, like, you know, find dates online. I mean, that's not visionary. So.
Yeah. So just going back to product. You know, I think you said, don't worry, be crappy, right? Yeah. I mean, how crappy are we talking here?
The market will tell you, but the point here is not that you ship crap. The point is that you ship something that is good news, that makes people creative, productive, happy. And if you do that, there can be flaws to your product. Version 1 of any product always has flaws. And if you know, Reid Hoffman of LinkedIn likes to say that if you look back and version 1 of your product doesn't make you cringe, you ship too late. You should cringe.
Yeah. So the thing is to start, right, and to get into the market. Is that the best?
That's, you know, I think many people they get so obsessed with the pitch and the plan and raising money. You know, the purpose of a company is not to raise money. The purpose of a company is to create customers, and the only way you create customers is to ship. And so, hence the don't worry, be crappy. The way it works in Silicon Valley is we ship and then we test. Except with biotech, I hope.
And I talk to a lot of younger startups, and obviously our channel focuses on younger people that are entering into the startup. And a lot of them tell me that, you know, they're doing this for the money.
Well, at least they're honest. Listen, I'm not a hypocrite, okay? Money's important. Yeah. But I think the sequence of events is you change the world, you dent the universe, you make people more creative, productive, happy, whatever. You add value to people's lives. A natural consequence of that is you make money. Right. But if you set off, if you only want to make money, just go be an investment banker. I mean, you know, that's the way to do that.
Yeah. So talking about jumping the curve, right? I love that concept because you've got to take it to the next level. But when you go to the next level, I mean, I've had my own experience in my companies over the years where it's tough when you're on that next level and you're the only one there, or you're still trying to work it out.
So what do you want me to do? Like, I'm not your psychiatrist, but that's where history's made, right? It's not by making a slightly better widget. It's by making an entirely new thing. It's it's not by making a better paper map. It's by making a digital map that's on your phone that uses real-time information about the traffic because it's monitoring where all the other users of Waze are. I mean, that's what it takes.
Yeah. And in your book, Art of the Start 2.0, you talk about the Bozos.
Yes.
So tell us about the Bozos.
Well, the Bozos, my thing on Bozos is, look, there's a lot of naysaying in the world. Can't be done, shouldn't be done, isn't necessary. And I have to say, most of the time they're right, but they're not always right. And so if you think they're always right and you never try, you'll never know, which is the worst outcome of all. So I wish I could tell you that whenever someone says you'll fail, it means you'll succeed. That ain't true either.
Not the case,
No. But if somebody says you'll fail and you don't try, you'll never know.
Yeah.
That's arguably worse. So, I mean, if you look at Apple, basically everything Apple did, everybody said no. No one would want a personal computer, no one would want a phone, no one would want a pad, no one would want an Apple store. The so-called retail experts said that it's impossible for one company to support a retail chain, because people want to go to a computer store and look at Dell and Lenovo and Apple and HP and Compaq. And so the theory was, if you could only go to a store and only see Apple, not enough breadth to the product line, et cetera, so it will never succeed. Well, I guess they were wrong.
Yeah.
And now you have a Microsoft store, right? So that's Bozosity. You have to just learn how to ignore Bozosity.
Bozosity. So I suppose I've been reading a bit of Jeremy Rifkin, the economist, talking about the third industrial revolution and the transition of the third. He's calling it the third.
What was the first? Is what, steam?
The first was steam. The second is communication, telco.
The third is internet.
The third is, he's saying, is the internet, an energy internet, and then a transport logistics internet, connecting the three together.
Okay.
Right. But transitioning from fossil fuels into what he's calling a digital revolution.
Oh, coal is back though. Who cares about the Great Barrier Reef?
Well, in Australia, we're in Parliament. We're debating coal, whether we open another coal mine. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I come from America. Like, we're making coal great again. It's unbelievable.
It's unbelievable. But I suppose the thing that I get asked a lot is our education system preparing? You've got young kids; they're moving into this brave new world. Is our education system up to actually providing the skills that they need to take on that third industrial revolution?
Hell if I know. I don't. You're asking a very macro level question, right? Is the educational system sufficient? I don't know the answer to that question, but as a parent, I have to confess that I'm not so much concerned with the overall macro level of education. I just want my 4 kids educated. Right. And if I could just pull that off, I'd be happy. Maybe it's too self-centered and it's selfish and all that, but it's in a sense, this is a lesson here that people let the macro picture drive them crazy. So some illustrations. So let's say you're an entrepreneur and you read that venture capital is down 20% year over year for the country of Australia. And so do you go in a deep funk saying, oh my God, venture capital is down 20%? Not really, because let's say you're trying to raise money and you raise your money, do you care if the whole industry is down 20%? You got your $1 million. That's all that really matters.
Right.
And the flip side is also true. Let's say you read that, venture capital is booming in Australia. It's up 20%. But you can't get funded. So does it matter that the macro picture is good? And you can apply this logic to, much of life. So, if you read that in San Francisco, the probability of a heterosexual woman meeting a heterosexual man to date is down 50%. Okay, but you only need one heterosexual to date. You don't care about the bigger macro statistic.
Yeah.
So that's a long way of telling you I don't know about the macro level of education, but as a parent, I just
want to educate your kids.
I don't know if I can pull that off.
I'm sure you will. So, talking about education again, and one of the things that you comment on is around having MBA corporate sort of executives coming into early stage companies, and maybe that's not the best path to take.
Yeah, that's an understatement in the world. Yeah, if you look at the great tech companies. 2 guys in a garage, 2 gals in a garage, guy and a gal in a garage, not the 52nd floor of, and they're in garages and bedrooms. I think one of the most empowering part of being a young entrepreneur is you don't know what you don't know. Because if you knew everything that someone as old as I am, knows, you would not do anything because you would know how hard everything is. So, part of being an entrepreneur is if you knew what it would take to make Apple successful, you would never have started an Apple.
Right.
It's too hard.
Yeah.
So ignorance is good.
Yeah. And so what's the to finish up the one piece of advice that you would give young people that are sort of embarking on an entrepreneurial journey? What's that?
First of all, live off your parents as long as you can. That applies to all young people.
Yeah.
I can't narrow it down to one. I have a lot of pieces of advice to give. Okay?
Well, you can give us a couple of pieces.
Okay. Wait, I mean, are we running out of tape here?
No.
You got to go to a bar mitzvah or something?
No.
Okay. So, first of all, the purpose of a company is to create customers. And so what you need to do is create your prototype and get to market. So, stop focusing on your pitch and your plan and, all that. Like, build your prototype. That's number one. Number two is it's always going to take longer and be harder than you think. And you may think you are the exception, that the first time in the history of man, your rock star programming team is going to deliver on time. It ain't going to happen. Whatever your engineers tell you, add a year to it. Okay? And that's if you're optimistic. So you have to understand, and that affects your cash flow. So, it's going to be a long haul. Entrepreneurship is a marathon. It's not a sprint. Even better an athletic analogy is it's a decathlon. It's a decathlon with a 26-mile run in the middle of it. Because a decathlon implies that you have to be good at 10 events, right? Yeah. Whereas a marathon, you just have to run. It's not just running, but it certainly isn't a 100-meter dash.
Right.
So that's another one. And the third one is, always try to hire people better than yourself. That you should look around the room. If you look around the room and you're the smartest person, you're in deep doo-doo, man. I mean, you should look around the room, and the marketing guy should be better at marketing than you. The finance gal should be better at finance than you. The engineering person should be better. I mean, you want to look at your room and say, oh my God, I'm surrounded by people better than me. Yeah. That's the goal, man. Right. If you look around the room and you're the smartest person, you're thinking, oh yeah, I'm just like the big dog, I'm the alpha. You're a loser. You're a freaking loser. You're a freaking loser.
Yeah, I've seen that. So I'll ask you another question. We've seen a lot of talk about ecosystems and innovation, and the world's jumping on this innovation bandwagon. I mean,
really? 2018 you're jumping on it?
Well, yeah. I mean, there are some countries that are actually just jumping on it, right? Yeah. But everyone wants to be the next Silicon Valley, and everyone's building ecosystems. I mean, what's your thoughts on all that?
I think the key First of all, you shouldn't want to become the next Silicon Valley. You should want to become excellent. You should become innovative, stuff like that. You don't want to emulate another place. But I think the root of all success here is the educational system. I just got through telling you I don't know if the educational system is sufficient, but I can tell you something. The root to the success, or the key to the success of Silicon Valley is probably Stanford University Engineering School. And so that's where you start. And it's not like, oh, we need to build incubators and we need to create venture capital funds, we need to do all this kind of stuff. The place to put your money is education. If you put money in education and you build a world-class engineering school, almost by definition, those smart kids are going to come up with great ideas and they'll start companies, and then the venture capitalists will appear. Okay, right. But if you say, okay, we're going to start with money and then find entrepreneurs, that's backwards. I mean, it starts with education. So focus on education. The problem with that is that politicians want to show results, right? And you can't exactly fix the educational system or enhance the educational system and before the end of your term have results. Therein lies the conundrum.
So, but I think what I've witnessed is also the first thing that governments want to do is build big buildings and build, co-working centres and all of that sort of stuff.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, there's nothing better. I mean, there's nothing wrong with reducing the friction of all that kind of stuff. But I think sometimes, whenever I go to conferences, somebody always says, well, for our region, we have doubled the amount of venture capital available. There's always bragging about, we create a $100 million fund, et cetera, et cetera. I'd like to go to a conference and somebody puts up a graph that says, we have a hockey stick of the number of engineering graduates. Right. That's what really counts, I mean, not because you convinced the government to give you $100 million that now you don't know how to deploy. The bragging point is that, my God, we've tripled the number of computer science graduates. That's the key.
Yeah. And just on that, in universities, a lot of the universities I see are now doing entrepreneurship programs and doing MBAs in entrepreneurship. I mean, is that something that you can learn at university?
I mean, definitely there are skills to learn. So it can't hurt, but I would say that it's not sufficient. And great entrepreneurs start with engineers. And so you got to have engineers. You also, fundamentally, when you come right down to it in a startup, there's only two functions. Somebody's got to build it and somebody's got to sell it. If you have someone who can build it and sell it, everything else falls into place, right? But if you don't have that, you have nothing. Yeah. So focus on building and selling.
Okay, so look, building aside, the sales thing, I'm really interested in the sales side of it because I see a lack of sales capability in a lot of early stage companies.
Yeah. But that's natural because, nerds aren't naturally salespeople, but that's okay. I mean, I'd rather have a bunch of nerds building something and you have to learn how to sell it than a bunch of selling people who cannot build anything. I mean, it's much easier to fix the lack of sales expertise than the lack of engineering expertise. Right. Yeah.
And so what's next for you, Guy? Have you got another book on the go?
I have another book. I have a book coming out at the end of February. It's called Wiseguy. It's a collection of the wisdom that I've gained through the various challenges I've faced. Yeah. So that's my next book, number 15. And, Chief Evangelist of Canva, which is doing extremely well. Brand Ambassador for Mercedes, which is also doing well. So, right now.
And so you have to drive a Mercedes, right?
Seriously, I do. Yeah. I mean, by contract, I have to. Yeah. I have to drive a Mercedes. Yeah. Also, by contract, they have to give me one, so it works out. Yeah, no, it's good to be Guy.
Yeah, no, I reckon. So do you get along to any of the Formula Ones and do any of that?
No, not. Lewis Hamilton's not calling me up for driving instructions. So I'm an Apple brand ambassador. I mean, not Apple. I'm a Mercedes-Benz brand ambassador. And every country has their own, but there's also about 8 or 9 of us who are corporate. And so it's Roger Federer, Garrett McNamara, big wave surfer, Susan Wolf, first female F1 driver. And so Mike Horn, explorer. There's like really just world-class athletes. And there's me. I guess. So the difference between waves that Garrett McNamara surfs and I surf is roughly 58 feet difference.
Yeah. So you a longboard? You a longboard or shortboard?
Yeah, my shortboard is 9 feet 9 inches. Your fin is probably smaller than my. No, I gotta say this right. I'm gonna say this right. My board is bigger than your fin. That's what I meant to say. Yeah.
And so Wiseguy, when does that come out?
End of February. I think it's. I mean, the world is flat. It doesn't have to be translated for Australia. So yeah. End of February.
Yeah. So I recommend to anyone that to check out some of Guy's books. The Art of the Start I thought was great for anyone that's starting out and just wants it broken down into nice, really succinct pieces. And also I love the TEDx stuff on the 10 points of innovation. That was a great presentation.
I just made a TEDx on the book about Wiseguy. And then I have another TEDx that you really should watch. This is not related to entrepreneurship. I interviewed Jane Goodall on stage. Right. And that was remarkable. So.
Okay, so we might put the link to that in this post. And the other book that I really enjoyed was The Reality Check. I think that we need a dose of reality check, right?
Every day, yeah.
Every day. Guy, it's been a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for chatting with us today, and have a good couple of days at Startup Grind.
Absolutely will.
Cheers.